Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Making It After 40 podcast. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I'm an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. My guest this week is actress and audiobook narrator Deepti Gupta. Deepti and I chat about her decision to pursue acting over her father's wishes, immigrating to the U.S. to get her MFA, AI and the future of the entertainment industry, and how to save our children from screens. Deepti has such a unique journey and knows how to ask for what she wants. I think this is a quality that I truly admire in her. And you'll hear in her story how time and again, she just asks for what she needs. And most times people end up giving it. So yeah, I think we could all try that. I tried that this week and I ended up getting a little of what I wanted. So yeah, why don't you try it? Okay. And with that, I hope you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I think a lot of parents have those moments where they wish that they had, they wish that they'd known what they know now. But you can apply that to so many factors in life. I haven't introduced you yet, listeners. My guest today is Deepti Gupta. Did I say your name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, great.
The D's and T's are all dental, so it's Deepti Gupta, which is a little hard.
Deepti Gupta, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Deepti is an actress and an audiobook narrator. And I learned today she's a podcaster. At least one podcast with your son. That's really cool. Deepti, I'm super interested in your creative career. I looked at your website and went through your IMDb and I watched your reel. You're a great actor. And obviously you've gotten awards for your work that you've done. So I'm not the first to tell you that. But I'm really curious about like how you built such an amazing career and your journey, because you were born in India and at some point you immigrated over here. You got your MFA at, was it University of Texas in Austin?
Yeah, UT Austin. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know, that just sounds so magical. You hear it's I think what's really interesting and really unique about your story is that so many times you hear about immigrant families and it's like, oh, they're coming over to be an engineer or a scientist or a doctor and this and that. So I'm curious about at what point in time if you came on your own or if your family immigrated to the US. I'd love to hear your journey. I'm third generation. My dad's family is from Mexico. And so like our family has been here for a little while now, but but I don't know. I love these stories. So why don't you share with the audience about your story?
Yeah, my father did want me to be an engineer. And for me growing up at that time, that in itself would have been pretty extraordinary for a woman to be studying engineering, because now we have a lot more women, but back then in a class of 40, 50 students, you would have 2 or 3 female students.
Yeah.
But that was not something I wanted to do. I remember in maybe 9th or 10th grade, some teacher asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or, and everybody was saying whatever. And I knew what I wanted to do, but I also didn't feel like I would be taken seriously. Standards of beauty there and here being what they are. And so I just remember standing up and I said, I just want to work in the media. Whatever that meant. That was the bravest I could be in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's just something that the first time I did anything on stage, as an actor was in 7th grade. And it was only because I found out through these girls that there was a play that was happening, and I was like, "Ooh, what's that? I want to check
Yeah.
it out." And they were like, "Oh, no, no, all the roles have been cast." So, and I was like, "Oh my God." And this was a new school I was in.
Yeah.
So I went home and I told my father, like, the girls were saying that and he was like, so he wrote a letter and he's like, "Take this letter to the teacher." So I went the next day, I took the letter. I don't even remember what he or knew what he wrote in the
Yeah.
letter.
You didn't read it.
No. And
Yeah.
the teacher was like, "All right." And I don't know, she asked me to improvise something or what she asked me to do. I just remember doing something and I got cast.
Oh, wow.
And the feeling in my body that I remember is this, like, literally it felt like lightning, like you raise your arm and you connect into
Uh-huh.
lightning and it's just like bzzz.
Oh,
It's like,
wow.
and of course I didn't know that at that time. It's something that I've reflected back on and I was like, "Oh, I remember that moment
Yeah.
specifically that something shifted." Um so this was something I always wanted to do, but I also grew up in a very middle class family. My
Mhm.
parents both came from small towns in India,
Mhm.
and living and making a life and a family in New Delhi was a big thing for them.
Yeah.
So, they both had 9 to 5 jobs and had creative interests, and but nothing that they my father kind of pursued his creative hobby a bit, but
Not very much.
very, stability, security, and those kinds of things are important.
Yes. Yeah.
And so my father wanted me to be an engineer, and he signed me up for the entrance exam for IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, which is like the premier engineering school.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't study for it, of course, because I had no intention to. So the day before the exam, he's at work and I call him and I was like, "So this exam tomorrow, I'm not gonna go, right? You know that, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't." And he was just silent. And then he was like, "Okay, I'll see you at home." Um, and in undergrad, I have a BA in English honors, English literature, and
Okay.
we had a flourishing theater company or drama club or whatever in
Mhm.
college. So I was a part of that and also part of a theater company that met in the evenings.
Oh,
So
wow.
undergrad for me was like leave the house at 8 a.m. and I had some classes, but I was doing theater all day long. So I thought my father understood what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then when I was graduating and I said, "Oh, I want to be an actor," he was very surprised and he told me the reasons that he thought I shouldn't pursue it.
Uh-huh.
And that was kind of like, up until then, it felt like he was my champion, like he had
Yeah.
my back. That was the first time and the biggest kind of moment of realizing that I had to, in a way, do this myself.
Yeah.
We didn't speak for a month and a half.
Oh my gosh. God, that must have
And
been so
then
hard,
I
especially
mean, I
when you
guess I
guys had
was just
already had.
angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but to his credit, he came back a month and a half later to me and he was like, "Well, if you wanna do this, you need to apply to Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London." And I was like, "Okay."
Oh,
So
wow.
I put together an audition tape and sent it, and because they were like, "Oh, no, no, we don't do tapes. You have to," you know. And I was like, "Well, I don't have the money to go to England," and
Yeah.
so there was nothing happening. Then I lived in Singapore and did an MA in theater studies, which was more theoretical, but I did theater locally in Singapore.
Okay.
And then I decided this is clearly what I want to do and I want to study. So I applied to a few acting schools in the US and a few in the UK. I got in most of them, but nobody wanted to give me a scholarship.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I don't have that kind of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And so I wrote to all of them saying I would need a scholarship or
Yeah.
something, or and UT Austin was the only one that was willing to make it happen for me.
Oh my gosh.
So I then came to the US to study acting, and now I've lived half my life here.
That's incredible. Wow. I mean, your journey has so many like steps where you had to be so brave and courageous to go for what you want. I mean, defying your dad, defying,
You
that's a big
it's
deal.
interesting. In retrospect, it is, but at that time, it felt like there was no other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like in the sense of like, I want this and this road is closed. What road is open?
Yeah.
Whatever road is open, I'm going to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Something that's great about youth is like when you kind of want something, you just kind of will make it happen. When it's in you, you're going to fight for it no matter what. And
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I did a year abroad, my third year in college, and I think everyone was kind of, because I kept talking about it and talking about it. I think some people were surprised when I actually did it,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I did the full year. I didn't do like the 6. I know some people would only do like the 6 months or like the one semester or whatever, but I was like, no, I'm gonna do the whole thing. And even when I went to college, I was only like 45 minutes away from my parents, so I'd never been
Mm.
away from my family, and I'm very, very close with my family. We're very, very close. There's a lot of
Where
us too.
where did you go?
I went to Lancaster, which is like northern England.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Lancaster University. It was great. It was fun too because it wasn't like I liked that it was different, and I felt pretty immersed in like the culture of England because it was a northern city, and like when we'd go into town, like you would see the local color, you'd see all the townies,
Mm.
and like what it was like
Yes.
to be in that environment. Whereas I think if I was in London, it would have been a very different
Yes.
city experience. This was not a big city at all.
Yeah.
And it was great. I'm still very close with a lot of my friends. Some of them have been on this podcast from that
Oh,
experience.
wow. That's so cool.
But yeah, then to like take the step to come to the US and like to just like boldly say like, well, hey, if you want me, you got to make it happen. That's awesome.
I mean, I guess that's the blessing in disguise of not having a lot
Yeah.
and then figuring out you learn to ask. And even then, I'm like, do I really? I think we can all get better at asking, asking
Yeah.
for help.
Yeah, asking for what you need, that's so hard
Yeah.
sometimes, huh? I think the biggest block for me is always like, well, I can't do it, and it never occurs to me to like just see if someone could help me make it happen. I'm getting better at that now as an adult, just
Yeah.
asking, and I figure what's the worst that can happen? They say no. Okay,
Yeah.
well, at least I tried.
Especially, I feel like as a mother, like before I was a mother, I would be like, I want to do this. Okay, great. I'm doing this. Now I just find uh, getting things done outside of that's just for me, like my project becomes much harder because I'm trying to work and raise a kid and have a family and make sure the house is clean to some degree
Yeah.
and all of that. And
Yeah.
then it's like, it's very hard to prioritize my own creativity
Yeah.
in that midst. It's
Yeah.
learning.
I was just talking to a guest about this the other day. Um, I hadn't like done any like short videos. I have like a recurring character that I do videos of on Instagram,
Uh-huh.
and I haven't done anything with it in a while. And so I hadn't made anything to put online in a while, and I was starting to get jealous when I would see other people's wins when they would post
Oh
stuff on
gosh,
Instagram, and I
yes.
felt that little jealousy and that anxiety. So I just put something together real quick, like one of these
Mhm.
trends that's going around on Instagram, and it made me feel so much better. And it took me, like it took like, let's say it took me like 15 minutes of my time to shoot the little pieces, and then it probably took me another like 15, 20 minutes to put it all together
Mhm.
because I had to
Mhm.
like I don't know, I was having some problems with the technology. If I didn't have the problems with the technology, it would have taken me 5 minutes. But it made me feel so much better. And I think, like you just said, it's so important to find those little moments where you can take 5 minutes for yourself or 20 minutes to do a little something creative, because we give so much of ourselves as caregivers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. And I also find that like if I can make time this week and let's say also next week and the week after, time management is a real challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And the carving out time, but also in a way that you're not exhausting yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel like now what I would have done in a month takes me 2 to 3 months
Yeah.
if I stay with it.
Yeah. What does your partner do?
He is a writer. We met at UT Austin.
Aw.
And he transitioned from playwriting to TV writing to now he's writing prose. He published his first novel last year.
Oh, wow. So are you guys able to kind of help each other make sure that you have the time to carve out for your projects and your work and whatnot?
Yes and no. It's constantly. Even this morning, I was like, so what's your plan for today? And he's like, this. And I was like, well, did you consider I have appointments? So why don't you work here and then you take over and I will be. And so it's just managing the schedule and making sure. There's so many times I'm like, did you look at the calendar? It's all there. And so he just, yeah. And then and now we have a 10-and-a-half-year-old who has his own needs and wants and things he wants to do, or his social calendar. So incorporating all those three and then making sure that the weekend feels like a weekend and we have some family time together. Oy.
Oh, that is our struggle all the time. And it's funny how the kids go from like when they're under 5 or even I could say under 7, they need you to do so much for them. You have to make arrangements for them. And until you find, let's say another friend who you feel comfortable with, like just dropping your kid off, you have to go to the play dates too.
Yes.
To sit there and watch the kids play and have an awkward conversation with a parent who, I mean, hopefully maybe you like have some sort of relationship, and it's like, so that's why it's like gold, like the unicorns, when you find those people who are like, I like you and our kids like each other. Woohoo!
Yeah.
You know, that's the best. But then when they get older, like you said, they have their own schedules. The most ideal situation is when you find that couple or the parent. It doesn't have to be, they don't have to have two parents. One parent who has a kid that you feel comfortable just dropping them off. They can do play dates. They can even do sleepovers, or they do the same activities and you can like share pickup and drop off. That is the key to success.
It is. And it's surprising how challenging that can be. Because they also have their own schedules that they're managing. So now you have 2 families trying to make sure their schedules work together.
Yeah. And then, like you said, just finding the time it's so important to find the time where you guys can all be together as a family in addition to doing your projects. It is hard being an adult with children.
Oh, man. Adult having partners and kids, and so adults having partners and kids and being creative. And sometimes your creativity is also how you earn money, and sometimes it's not. So then that's a whole other thing to balance.
That's where I'm at, because I've had to go back to work full time. I worked as a commercial property manager for 15 years, and I took a break after I had my 3-year-old. And so I'm back working full time. And so it's like now I work all week and then I podcast at night and on the weekends, and it's a big challenge. And then, you throw in an audition every once in a while. It's a lot of work.
It is. It's constantly moving pieces.
Yeah. So at what point did you and your husband decide to move out to LA and kind of give it the old shot, the big shot?
Yeah, we lived in New York.
Okay.
And I had a love-hate relationship with that city because it's a great city, but also It's a hard city to be in. I
Mm.
met a lot of great people in New York. So
Mhm.
connecting with people is not an issue in New York, I think. And now things might have changed. I don't know.
Yeah.
But just the city itself can be, it's a hard city to live in.
Yeah.
Because even if your own life circumstances are good, the hardships of other people is
Mhm.
in your face every day.
Oh, yeah.
Unlike LA, where you just like in your car and sure, you just drive by and then you go where you're going and then you go back
Yeah.
to where you live. And it kind of keeps you away from that. So he wanted to write for TV, and I thought, well, we don't have a kid, so let's just move now because who knows
Yeah.
what, you know. So we moved, and oh my God, I was just talking to him the other day about that. I have never been a nervous auditioner, but once I moved to
Uh,
LA, I mean, literally, not, the sides would be shaking in my hands as I was
oh my
in audition
gosh.
rooms.
Oh, I've been there.
I was like, what is going on with me? Like, do I need to go see a therapist, or what I need to do?
Yeah.
Or like, am I going to be able to do this? Thankfully, over time and just meeting some people, I guess when you're looking for a way forward,
Mhm.
just like take whatever moves you even one step forward.
Yeah.
So many times it's hard to remember that. So I just remember this guy David Ackert. He was an actor
Mm.
then,
Mhm.
and how things SAG. He was doing a SAG webinar or panel or something,
Yeah.
and I saw that, but I missed it. I couldn't go. So I looked him up. I wrote him an email through his website, and I said,
Uh-huh.
I'm so sorry I missed this thing you were doing. It sounded like it was amazing. I look forward to the next time I can attend anything that you do. He wrote me back to his credit,
Oh
and he
my
said,
gosh.
well, this is a non-SAG thing, but I'm talking to a group of students at UCLA. Why don't you come? Here's the address. You'll be my guest. And I thought, oh, what? So I go to
Wow.
UCLA and I meet him and I attend this thing, and I thought, wow, he's really insightful and all the things. And we had a chat, and I was
Mhm.
like, okay, that was it. A couple of weeks later, he calls me and he's like, so I'm teaching a UCLA extension class with this casting director, and we have a couple of scholarships available. Do you want to accept one?
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, what? Yes, of course. And I attended, it was like a Wednesday night, 8 or 12 week kind of a working actor class where we talked
Yeah.
about all kinds of things, and like things like purpose as an actor and as an artist.
Mhm.
um, why do you do what you do? How do you connect with the community you're a part of? And just kind of larger things as well.
Yeah.
And the last part of that workshop, course, whatever, class, was we all had to come up with a project that we thought we could do as a way to
Mhm.
give back to the community. So I had come up with a monthly script reading series where we would read new work.
Oh,
As,
wow.
nothing like groundbreaking. People have done it
Yeah.
before. But I really felt like for the first time compelled and kind of like, oh, my value, my I don't know, it just felt like as an artist, I am not just here to please give me something, I can also give back.
Yeah.
And so with a friend of mine, Carrie Ann James, I started a script reading series, which started in my living room with like 5 people.
Oh my
And in
gosh.
3 years' time, 4 years we ran that? Can't remember. Yeah, 4 years. It grew to like 40, 50 people who were the core members of the organization. And then we would do events where we had 300, 400, 500 people attend.
Oh
We
my
raised
gosh.
funds. Yeah, it grew.
Did you
We had
guys
a
help
board.
produce some of these screenplays
We
or
didn't ever produce them, but we
Uh-huh.
did staged readings. We did panels with like different TV producers and writers come and talk about stuff. And we would
Yeah.
do silent auctions. And because my whole thing was writers, married to a writer. I was
Yeah.
like, I understand what it's like for them. I don't want for them to have to pay for printing scripts. I don't want them to have to worry about, well, where am I going to have my words read out loud? So we always figured out a free space through just to keep talking to people, tell them what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I spent my own money initially to print scripts, and then eventually, after our first big event, we raised money, and we could use those funds to pay for printing scripts or whatever else was needed.
Yeah.
And it was really a very empowering experience, because LA is hard to meet people in
It's very
and
hard.
make connections with.
Yeah.
So instead of trying to insert myself into other people's already existing spaces, I was able to create a space for other people to come together.
Yes.
And a space in a way that I wanted it to exist, which, LA has a reputation for, like, let's meet for coffee.
Yeah.
And then it would never happen.
Yeah.
And having lived in New York, I'm like, we're going to meet for coffee. So it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tell you, let's meet for coffee, and then just be like, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it attracted people who wanted that kind of an experience where they were partnering with this small group of people. My big thing was, if you want your script read, you need to show up for other people's scripts being read.
Yes.
And give them feedback and your thoughts. Don't just be here as a taker. And so we created rules around that and different things.
I can imagine you created such an amazing community, and like they always say, like, make your own work, make your own work, make your own work, or make your own opportunities, which is sounds like what you did. I'm sure that just that group alone has led to like great partnerships or collaborations, or just relationships
Just
with people who you would have
relationships.
never met.
Yeah. I mean, I think so, talking about creativity and adulting, I had my kid. I got pregnant and then had my kid while I was running this thing. And even, I think maybe he was 2 years old when I finally decided this was more than I could handle, because I needed to focus on my work and being a mother.
Yeah.
And it was too much. And some people think that I didn't close it down very thoughtfully.
Oh.
And maybe I didn't. But I knew I couldn't continue being at the head of it. And the folks that wanted to take on, and there was also like money involved, because we had saved up money from previous things, and how they wanted to run it. And I was like, no, and then I thought, well, but now I'm getting involved. The whole point was for me to not get involved. And I felt like as long as this thing that I started was going to go on, a part of me would always be attached to it. And maybe I wasn't grown up enough in my own self to just let it go and let it, be something else. But it ended.
That's hard. And I think, again, it's that hindsight thing where you can always look back and say, like, oh, I could have done better closing it out. But at the same time, it sounds like you had a lot on your plate. You're a mom of a young child. That's a really tough time to be in. And I feel like sometimes when you're in that space, depending on what kind of help you have, you're just trying to get through each day. You're just trying to get from one day to the next. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself. And, like the people who maybe felt like you didn't do it well, that's kind of on them. They're going to have to.
I mean,
hopefully they
they've
moved
all
on.
moved on. Some relationships soured because of that. And, I felt like I gave them other options that they didn't want to take.
Yeah.
And they had their own reasons, and I couldn't convince them otherwise. And that was that.
What are you going to do?
What are you gonna do?
People are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Well, then, how did you find your reception in LA? Were you was it easy for you to start finding work? I know for a lot of actors of color, they have varying experiences of, like
Yeah.
either I've had actors who just like keep running up against the stereotypes, or there just aren't any roles for them, or they're not being given the opportunities to go after roles unless it's like specified for their ethnicity.
It happened then and it happens still.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is like, is it still happening, or do you
Yes.
feel like it's evolved? And I know for
Yeah.
every race, every ethnicity has a
There's a
different, like,
season. No, we're
yeah,
flavor of the month, flavor of the time of year,
yeah.
and then it's something else. And currently there's one particular flavor that's in vogue and
Hmm.
it will change. And it's frustrating
Yeah.
because these are random things.
Hmm.
Um, it was challenging. I think I used to hear when I was in New York that, both the cities have this stereotype that New York is for the serious actor and
Uh-huh.
LA is for the commercial actor.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is that even? How do you can't control that thing.
Yeah.
But I realize now, because when I starting out in LA, it took me a while to book my first TV gig,
Hmm.
longer than it did in New York.
Yeah.
Um, but I booked commercial gigs sooner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I would say the lens of, oh, you're Indian, so you're gonna, this still exists. Just this last week, two different roles came up, and one was non-white, and one was Indian woman.
Hmm.
And I have the opportunity to audition for the Indian woman role, but I don't have the opportunity to audition for the other one because
Yes.
they're going with the flavor of the week for that one,
Uh-huh.
even though it's non-white, so it could be open. And I fit
Yeah.
that all the different other things really well,
Yeah.
but casting doesn't want to see me for that. So
Yeah.
that's still present, and our business is going through a transition, and there's a lot of news that it's kind of doom and gloom, like, oh, they're cutting
Hi.
on series regulars now. It's going to be guest recurring or whatever, that kind of stuff. Or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also narrate audiobooks, so AI is taking over, and so
Yeah.
there's that, and there's just a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. I feel like I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
And maybe it is because when I lived in Delhi, as much as I used to watch Oprah, and I would watch all these Hollywood films, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh my God." And I used to rehearse my Oscar speeches even then,
Yeah.
but did I actually think I would be working in Hollywood?
Hmm.
Not in any realistic kind of way. So, I don't know. I feel like we're going to be fine. What human beings can do that AI cannot is
Yeah.
that we invent. We are creative.
Yeah.
We know how to be resilient. AI can only do, maybe I'm wrong and I don't understand AI very well, but like, um, ultimately, I think, don't quote me on it, but AI is copy paste, and with some intelligence, some better copy paste.
Yeah, I think so too. I think um I'd like to be optimistic and hope that we're going to be okay. I would say, like, for me, my dream situation would be that I was doing audiobooks as like my bread and butter, or
Mhm.
doing voiceover as my bread. Man, if I could just do voiceover for my whole career, oh, I would love that. That would be amazing. Um But yeah, like it's a little scary, but I feel like the powers that are pushing the working class actor down, or like trying to like get labor for cheap, or trying to like find the shortcut and cut the actors out of it, I think they're going to quickly find that it's not going to work the way that they thought. I think
Yeah.
I know the AI is getting really good, like the AI voices are getting really good, but I think for certain quality things they're going to realize it just doesn't cut it.
It doesn't.
Um and I think in terms of like paying the actors less, I hope our union steps in and does something, but I don't know. I don't know what other solution there can be other than like the other thing that could happen is that they go down the path where they start paying actors less and less, and so actors start having to take on other day jobs, and so they're acting but they're also like doing the day jobs, and they get burnt out, and then they leave, and then they start realizing, oh no, wait, we screwed up, we have to pay the actors. But I don't know, there's so many actors available.
Mm,
Think the problem is like the people who are willing to take less. I don't know.
yes. And it's, I used to get resentful about anybody just being like, well, I want to be an actor. And they just like get up and be like, I used to
Mhm.
be an accountant and now I'm going to be an actor. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't just get up and be like, I want to be an accountant,
Yeah.
you know? But now I've had to contend with the reality of our business that sometimes the business wants a certain look, a certain
Mhm.
pretty, a certain something, and it doesn't care what training or experience you have. And sometimes that works out beautifully. And so
Yeah.
there's this part of it as well that's just like, it is what it is. And uh, I have decided to no longer be resentful about it.
Yeah. I think that's a healthy way to think, because it's like that kind of like resentment is kind of with that mentality, like kind of like the lack mentality, like there aren't enough jobs for everybody. So now you come in and you're taking away my job. But it's like, yeah, but you wouldn't have had that job anyway because you didn't have the look or whatever. I have a
Ugh.
friend who was he worked in higher education,
Mhm.
like doing analytics. And I'm sorry, Ron, if I got your job title wrong, but he started taking classes at Second City when he
Mhm.
was in his late 40s to become a better manager. And then he just enjoyed it so much. He just kept going with it. And when he's from Chicago, so he
Mhm.
knew of Second City, and someone had bought him classes like a long time ago because they were like, you should do it. You would have fun. You're so fun. You're so funny. And then he did it, and he's so talented. He just had a knack for it. So he did the whole Second City Hollywood program, graduated, and he met a manager at one of the diversity festivals because he was there and
Mhm.
performing. And next thing you know, like he just like books everything he auditions for because he just has that magnetic thing. And I'm so happy for him. He's on the show Jury Duty, which is
Ah.
like blown up right now. He plays Ken. What's his character's name? Ken something rather. He's the Korean businessman who has like the gumball
Mm.
machines. And it's been huge. And it's like here at the age 50, he quit his job and he became an actor. And he's like, I don't know, it feels very surreal. But like, I think for someone like him, he kind of fell into it. But at the same time, it was like he always had it in him. And if he had tried to do it when he was in his 20s, he probably would have failed.
Mm.
Because like he was one of those people who had to age into his type.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people where it's like they just always look like a 40-year-old mom. So when they were 23 going out for things, they would
Mhm.
never book it because it's like you're not the hot 23-year-old, you're the middle-aged mom. But it's not until they get into their 40s they finally start booking stuff. I think he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one of those people.
Mm.
So like there are those people, and like I don't know, like you said, you can't hold it against them. This is the way the industry is.
I wish I could just up and become a doctor tomorrow.
I know, right? Yeah. It
Then
is
we'll see how the
frustrating.
doctors feel who've spent 4 years in studying and 2 years in
Right.
residencies and all that.
Well, there's definitely actors who decide to like be. I know so many actors who decide to become therapists, so they go back to school
Yeah.
and they become therapists. So there is that. But yeah, you have to put your dues in, and it is frustrating when we spend so much time training and putting in all our dues, and we're still not booking the way that like those random folks are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also the other, going back to the AI thing, the chatbot, or is it chatbot or whatever?
ChatGPT.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For writers, I listened to Script Notes with John
Mhm.
August and Craig Mason, and they talk about, they're like, yeah, like we kind of put together some, like we played with it to see what comes about, and it just doesn't hold up at all. It's not there. What they said was like, it's not a bad thing for like maybe generating ideas, but
Yeah.
generating dialogue and like a story, no.
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 My husband said to me this morning, he was like, "I was trying it out." And I was like, "Why are you feeding the beast?" Because it is.
Yeah.
You may be
Yeah.
trying it out, but you're helping make it smarter. Do not
Yeah.
engage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
But,
Yeah.
it's like kids. Don't play with that thing. Of course, the kids are going to go play with that thing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, "I told you. I
Yeah.
told you." So I don't know. There's a lot of people I feel like 2-3 years ago we watched this documentary on PBS. What's it called? The Brain something. And it just talks about, in 4-episode series, how the human brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And it interviewed folks who work at Apple and Google in higher positions, and how they don't let their kids engage with tablets and
Yes.
technology in that way. But yet
Yes.
they sit there and approve and develop all these things and would push their products in everyone's faces. They don't care. And so I was like, it's one thing for you to sit here and be like, yeah, but then quit your job
Mm-hmm.
or do something to counter what these companies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Your confession is worth only so much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine for everyone else, but it's not fine for you. That's when it almost feels like
So the
classist.
danger that exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can have a nanny and a this and a that, so you don't have to have your kid be on a tablet while you're doing your work or you're having a meeting.
But the single mom who's trying to run her errands and has to bring her kid with her because she doesn't have the option to have the kid stay at home with a sitter or a nanny, they're giving their kid the phone because that's the easiest solution in the moment because you're just trying to get through your day.
Right. And then the flip side of that is then the kid wants that more and more.
Yeah.
And now you're dealing with where relationships start to rupture because now you're fighting over technology, but really you're not fighting over technology, you're fighting over connection. Something creates the sense of whatever and all the brain chemicals that are going off for the kid. You're competing with that. How? It's like...
Yeah. And like, I know this comparison gets made a lot, but like when we as adults think about how many times we reach for the phone subconsciously,
Yep.
and we're adults and we didn't grow up with it, how are our kids supposed to ever overcome that sort of addiction if we can't? I don't know. Maybe they have an advantage because they've always been around it, and maybe, but I don't
think so. Like all the things I hear about high schoolers, middle schoolers with their phones and technology, it does not give me any kind of sense that they have a better relationship to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to tell my kid who loves to play video games on iPad with his friends, and I'm like, the screen is eating your brain cells. And he just looks at me like, you're just making up stuff. I'm like, no, remember that documentary we watched?
Let's watch it again. Oh, what was the one that was on Netflix? There was one that was on Netflix.
Yes.
The social disorder or the social something.
Yes.
I
We've
never
watched that as
watched it,
well.
but one of my dearest friends, her kid asked for a phone and she said, "Okay, I'll get you a phone, but first you have to sit down with me and watch this documentary." So they watched it together and then she let her kid, because she was trying to, just like set the ground rules, like set the stage. I
Understand
should
what
have
you're
done that and
engaging
I
with.
did.
Say that again?
I should have done that with my kid and I didn't. Yeah.
Well, I don't know that the result would be any different.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much peer pressure and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, going back to your career.
Mhm.
At some point, you fell into narrating, or maybe didn't fall into. At some point, you started
I
narrating
did fall
audio.
into
Oh, you
narrating
did?
audiobooks.
Okay. How did that happen? And do you enjoy that?
Divine intervention, I guess.
Yeah. Is that how you make your money for the most part between acting gigs,
It
or?
varies every year.
Yeah.
Um, I knew someone in New York, Facebook, social, whatever network, who knew this person who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have this thing. Would you want to narrate this audiobook?" I didn't even know what audiobooks were,
Oh, yeah.
but it was work. And I was
Yes.
new in LA. And I was like, yes, I was pregnant at the time.
Oh,
And
wow.
so then I was like, okay. And I remember I had to go buy a Mac because I didn't have my own like proper computer to record on.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a booth. And my husband and I like finagled a little kind of situation in our apartment with blankets and towels. And I was 7 months pregnant at the time in
Oh
the
my
like
gosh.
brutal LA heat. Turn off the AC so I can record quietly. It was, oh my God. And I didn't have an iPad or anything. I didn't know anything. So I had the whole book printed on paper. And, I would be like, oh, now I got to shift the paper. So I had to edit. Oh, I mean, like it was as rudimentary as it could be.
Oh my God. It must have taken forever.
Yeah. And they were like, okay, good. And they, gave me more. And I, like a fool, I guess, or naive, I didn't realize what giving birth can be like, the afterwards
Oh,
of.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah. So here I was 3 weeks after, a month after giving birth, and I had to record this other book, and we had to move all the things in our apartment. So now this other second bathroom was my booth, but then the neighbors upstairs would flush and the sound. And I was
Oh my
trying to wake
God.
up at odd hours to record. And I just was like, what am I doing? I cannot do this.
Yeah.
So I had to call them and say, I'm so sorry. I thought I could do it. I am just not able to. And I was
Yeah.
so scared because I thought, oh, here's a way for me to make money. And like personally, not only am I failing, but now this relationship is gone because they won't trust me again.
Yeah.
And here goes this thing. Thankfully, they were understanding, and it was a South Asian American man who was producing the audiobooks then. And it was also his side gig. He's,
Yeah.
his passion is music and cooking, and
Yeah.
he was just doing this. And he was like, don't worry about it. It took a while to get more books with them afterwards. But then I got enough of a bite that I thought, okay, I need to get like proper equipment and everything. So I invested in a booth where I'm sitting right now. And it was not something that I very aggressively went after. I
Mm-hmm.
think now things are different. The pandemic has made things very different in the audiobook world. But then it
Yeah.
still felt like it was a space where you could be gentle and take your time without feeling like you need to be aggressive and get all the books because otherwise somebody else will get it.
Yeah.
And I got to be a part of the community through different Facebook groups and learn and ask
Mm-hmm.
questions and connect, and made some friends, and then, learned strategies for like, oh, reach out to them or here's. And so just kind of gradually grew to become something where I can be creative
Uh-huh.
and make money.
That's great. I mean, I think audiobooks are so neat. I think are you at the point now where you can just record, or like you have maybe like a director or someone and they take the audio and you don't have to edit it, or do you still edit it yourself?
I've never had to edit my own
Oh,
audio.
that's great.
Yeah, and now I know the tools of punch and roll. So the
Yeah.
producers proof it and give me corrections. I send it back, and they edit and master it. I think a couple of them I've done through ACX, but I was able to ask for more so I can hire an editor and
Yeah.
so get that taken care of.
Yeah.
But even in the pandemic has changed audiobooks because now when you couldn't be on camera, everyone bought mics and created makeshift booths and,
Yeah.
so now we had an audiobook conference. There's several this year. And the whole vibe is very different.
Yeah.
It's that I hate to say it, and I'm a part of it as well, and that's why mental health and emotional health for actors is so important, because otherwise we carry this desperate energy,
Oh, yeah.
and it is so palpable. And I get it as an actor myself. I so get it, but I also it's no good for anybody.
Yeah.
And I had never quite felt it before at these conferences, but I felt like this year there was definitely that, oh, who am I networking with? And it was there before, but it was like many folds now.
Yeah.
People, yeah, which is not bad. Again, which is not
Yeah.
bad. I think with more people means also we may be able to force the union to create better contracts for us. But at
Yeah.
the same time, the industry has shifted now.
You know, this just made me think, I don't know if this is a fair comparison. So in like 2004, 2005,
Mhm.
when the housing market was going nuts,
Uh-huh.
everybody became a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Everybody became a real estate agent, right? And
Yeah.
then quickly found that there wasn't enough work. And then all those people like started, and they made it harder to get your real estate license. It's like
Yes.
a college course now. I have my real estate license because I'm a property manager, so I had to do
Ah,
that.
yeah.
So I don't sell houses. I've never done that. But then those people who thought, oh, this is going to be fast money, this is going to be easy, they fall away. Same thing with notaries. I became a notary. I got a little bit of everything. I got all kinds of certifications. I became a notary and to do loan signings. Everybody was refinancing because the interest rates were so low. And it was impossible to get a notary job unless you were already established. But
Mm.
now, all of a sudden, I think all those notaries have fallen out. So now I get like dings all the time for loan signings.
Ah.
So maybe it's going to be something like that, where like there's a boom with the audiobooks.
Mm.
And so everybody's jumping in, but they're going to quickly find that, especially through like the ACX jobs, you're not making any money and it's so much work. So then when you figure out like how much time you're putting in, you're making like $15 an hour if you're lucky, so I think it'll fall away and it'll settle again.
Mm.
One of my neighbor is an audiobook director for oh shoot, is it Penguin or
Penguin Random
Harper?
House?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she's an audiobook director for there, and her job switched. She used to go to Burbank to
Yeah.
record
There's
in
studios.
studio. Yeah, but now she mostly works from home and just directs people from home and whatnot. And she said, like she's like, yes, it's a lot of there's a lot going on, but then I think also she's working at a level where it's like, the best of the best, like people like you who've been doing it for like 10 years or whatever. That's who she's mainly working with, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah. And that's the same with acting.
Mm-hmm.
It's glamorous. It looks glamorous and fun and easy. And, oh, you can make how much in one day's booking? And then when you really enter and you realize how many times a year you actually get to work,
Yeah.
then you're like, oh wait,
That like $1,200 a day
the
does not
tax
feed
gets
you for the
taken
year.
out of it, your agent gets paid out of it, and like,
Mhm.
I mean, at some point, at the Actors Fund, they had this money class. What do they call it? Miata.
Yeah.
Miata.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Miata. Oh my gosh. Oh, why can't I think of the
Abundance
name?
Abound.
Abundant. Yes. Yeah. I
That's
was
her.
actually thinking about, I don't know her, but I know her work. I was thinking about reaching out to her because I think
She's amazing.
yeah.
And, she was like, okay, so let's do the math. How much do
Mhm.
you need to earn in a year? And you know how much this kind of job pays, this kind of job pays, how many of those jobs would you have to book to make this much money?
Mhm.
And of course, you always factor in the uncertainty of the business. And it was really eye-opening to do the math
Yeah.
and to kind of recognize, sadly, how unrealistic that can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then figure out, how do I support myself through, she's just an amazing advocate and educator for actors.
Yeah. Yeah. She is. She is. And that is such an important piece that a lot of us don't think about when we come out here. And it took me a long time to understand that piece.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you, I know we've been a little bit talking about all the challenges that are on the
Everything, yes.
horizon, but I do want to ask you, what do you look forward to as you continue to grow in your career? I know there's some hurdles ahead with all the technology coming up, but what do you look forward to with your career as you continue to age?
At the moment, I'm having a really hard time having to play mother
Mm.
roles. What you said earlier about, when you're a 20-year-old and you don't fit that ingenue mold, I never
Mm-hmm.
quite did.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a part of me that, it's like unrequited love.
Mm.
And so there is some resentment.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite figured out. And I think hope, gosh, I don't know, hope. I guess hope is, in the last 2, 3, during the pandemic, I've been able to do my first uh, animated kids shows, and
Yeah.
I'm doing my first video game. And all of them have been possible because these content creators are either themselves of South Asian descent and have decided to tell these stories,
Yeah.
or, a Kung Fu Panda, the latest season of the TV show. I'm in that.
I
And
saw
that
that on
happened
your
because of how the storyline worked out. And, they decided, okay, now this part of the story takes place in India.
Okay.
And so that gives me hope. And
Mm.
I guess it's cautious hope, because part of the thing that I want to see more of is people our age telling stories.
Mhm.
There is a certain kind of story that is going to be told when you're 20 and, early 30s. You're
Yeah.
going to see your parents in a certain way. That is
Yeah.
just what's going to happen. And I am interested in stories of people my age, because we are so much more than just the parents.
Yes.
But our kids cannot see us more than that. So if they
Yeah.
are the only ones who are telling the stories, then what happens to our full story?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, I guess it's more of a prayer, really,
Mhm.
that these younger storytellers, think about well-rounded characters, even if there are parents or uncles or whatever older generation to them,
Yeah.
so to speak, that they think about that. And I hope that more people of our age start to create content that speaks to our experience and not just try to tell the 20-something's story from this side of the aisle in a way.
Yeah.
I want to see that, and hopefully I can be a part of pushing that forward. I'm not sure how.
Yeah. Maybe a collaboration with your husband if he's up for writing another script.
I think it's enough that we can run a household and raise a kid together. Putting more on that relationship might be a little too much.
I understand that. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
My husband has tried to give me notes on stuff that I've written, and I'm like, no.
Yeah. But I think it's really, it's a slower process, as we talked about earlier. But I feel like this is what I do. This is what I'm going to do till I cannot anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm here. I'm here for the long haul, however it's going to be. And because I'm here for the long haul, I feel like we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And like you said, like there's a new influx and then things will settle down. And then something else will happen in a couple of years and things will settle down. And a smooth sea doesn't make an experienced sailor. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true. That is very true. Well, what advice would you have for someone who's maybe just coming up in their career, or maybe if they're looking to make a change in their career?
So I guess for both this applies, and I was telling this to my 10-year-old yesterday. You have to find a way to trust yourself so deeply that you can be at peace no matter what is going on.
Okay.
And it's easier said than done, but in our industry, there's so many people who would proclaim they are experts. And because they are experts, you must listen to everything they're saying. And they have all the answers if you just do as they say. Bullshit. It is crap. You can drink the Kool-Aid, or because ultimately at some point they will close their shop or something will happen and then you'll be left to, you have to trust yourself.
Yeah.
You have to trust yourself. If that means you need to be in therapy to figure out how to do that, the artist's way. It's a 12-week thing, self-guided by the book. You can get it at thriftbooks.com for $10. Get the book, do it. There is a musician and a coach and therapist whose name I now can't remember. Her podcast is Artist for Joy, I think.
Okay.
And she has, in the fall, she's starting a free kind of guided thing for the Artist's Way.
Yeah.
So join that and learn more about yourself. And I remember when I was 18 and someone told me, and I was like, yeah, I know myself. Like, what kind of advice is that? Know yourself. But the knowing yourself is when you face rejection, what happens?
Yeah.
Where in your body do you feel that?
Yeah.
And how do you take care of yourself in a kind way so that you're not telling yourself, what the heck, you can't do that. Like, just, it's so much of that.
Yeah.
And I feel like other things will be fine. You'll figure that out. Like, other things are just whatever.
Yeah.
They can be figured out. But if you're not good to yourself, no one can.
Totally. I so much of being a good actor, artist, making great work is knowing yourself. And I know, like, for me, in my 20s, I would have never made it because I didn't know myself. I wasn't ready. Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard because it's not something that we live in a society where everyone has 3 tips or 5 tips or 10 tips
Yeah.
to blah, blah, blah. And you think, oh, it's
Yeah.
just these simple steps and I can
Yeah.
just whatever.
No.
And it is really not.
Yeah.
And, find people who can just sit with you and go, yeah, this is hard. And I also see you want to do it and you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's great. So my last question, I
Yes.
always ask everyone, what does making it mean to you now versus when you were younger?
Oh boy,
What
how
does
is that a
success
last
look like
question? That's like the main question because I feel like I still contend with what is success,
mm-hmm.
right? I don't know. I feel like making it or success is this like mirage that keeps on moving. The more I travel,
Mm-hmm.
the more it moves.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm having to remind myself that I have been taught making it means when you achieve really, 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 really big success.
Mm-hmm.
My father told me, go to Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, London, if you want to study acting.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the ways in which we measure our passion, our dedication, and all of those things.
Yeah.
And it can be useful to want to master, to want to really like be in an exploration with what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I'm learning is if I cannot celebrate and appreciate where I am today, even when the big thing happens, I wouldn't know how to celebrate because I actually don't have that muscle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This is thanks to my therapist who helped me realize, because I was like, yeah, but this is fine. This is like this gig. I want that gig. And she's like,
Yeah.
and what happens when you get that gig? And I was like, well, then I would be awesome. And she's like, and how will you celebrate? And I was like, oh, and she's like, and then it wouldn't be another gig that would be better than that you would want
Yeah.
to feel.
The
And I
finish
was like,
line
oh,
keeps moving.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it's very hard because that brings up feelings of, am I settling? Am I mediocre? Am I complacent? Do I not
Yeah.
have drive for better and more? What does that mean for my career? Am I just going to settle here and this is how it's all going to be? This is the end of it? All of those
Yeah.
things. But at the same time, the shifting mirage creates so much low-grade anxiety that is consistent that it's
Yeah.
probably not helpful.
Yeah.
So maybe the wisdom is making it. Maybe the wisdom to know that like there is really no making it.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, I mean, the pandemic taught us you could die tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I actually think about this often, like on my deathbed, what are the things I would be proud of?
Yeah.
What are the things that would make me feel like, I did well?
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes gives a lot of clarity for when I'm anxious about like, I didn't get called in for that role.
Yeah.
And if I got called in for that role and I booked it, and then it would mean this, and then it would mean this, and and it's great to have that fantasy, that kind of like daydreaming. It's important.
Yeah.
But if not having that daydream pan out exactly like that means that I'm going to be like, well, fuck, things are not going to work out for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then that's a very hard way to live.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to take the pressure off yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Come on, Deep.
Yeah, it's challenging, but it's important. And it allows you to see others with more grace and kindness as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important. We all could use a little kindness and grace these days.
Yes.
This has been so awesome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you giving me your time and your energy. The thing that I heard a lot in this conversation, to you finding your path and finding your successes,
Yes.
is asking, just asking for it when you needed it. That seemed like a pretty consistent thing in your story. You asked for the scholarship. You asked for oh shoot, there was something else I can't remember.
And I'm
But
still learning. The
yeah,
asking keeps getting harder,
yeah,
and I have to keep stepping into the bigger ask.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like a muscle you
yeah,
have to
yeah,
despite all the fears, you have to go, "But I really need this." So,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yes, I'm gonna ask. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again.
Thank you for doing this podcast as well. For
Yeah.
for for I guess the thing that I was saying about the things I'm hopeful about, you're kind of doing that, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
Yeah.
you're my colleague. You share so many number of years on this planet, and you're helping tell our stories.
Yes,
So
that's
thank you.
exactly it. That's very important to me, is that because when I was listening to all these actor podcasts, it was for like 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. I'm like, but that
Mhm.
doesn't, like, I can't relate to that at all. I
Mhm,
want to know
mhm,
like what other people are doing who are my age, people who are like still looking for that success that they haven't achieved yet.
mhm.
Why are we still out here fighting for it? you know? And I do think that there are more voices, middle-aged voices that we're seeing. I hope to be one of those voices out there, telling our stories, because I think there's so many of us who would like to see ourselves. And I think we're starting to see more of that. So
It's so weird to hear middle age. I was like, "What? I
I
am
know,
middle age?" I
right?
forget when I'm talking to people, I forget that I'm
I
older
know.
than some of these folks.
I know. I do too. And then I start to realize, I'm like, oh, wait a second. You're like 30. I'm not 30 anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mm.
then I'm like, "Oh, I'm that lady who, like, thinks that she's, like, young and cool, and she's so not." Like, there's, like, a 25-year-old in the office that I work in, and I'll talk to him and, like, try to relate, and I'm like, he's probably like, "This old lady."
Oh my god,
Oh,
guilty as
well.
charged. That's
Yep,
definitely
yep,
me
yeah.
too.
Anyway, all right,
Alright.
well, this has been fun. Let's talk again soon.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, I'll see you in the groups.
Yes,
Yeah.
you will. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. You can follow Deepti on Instagram at the Deepti Gupta. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And please share the show with your friends. Word of mouth is the best marketing. Be sure to follow the show on Instagram at Making It After 40, the number 40, and to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thank you all for listening and have an excellent week.